Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
I've been patiently waiting, and we're gonna take it like that. You can say we we're gonna right now, and then we rise
Last week, amidst the chaos on the streets of Long Beach, Luke McEwen sprinkled some magic to win the opening round of the INDYCAR Thrustmaster iRacing Pro Series. And we stay on the West Coast. We head up to the Portland International Raceway for a second consecutive road course to open up the season. Hi folks, Arjuna Kankipati back alongside of Kenneth Bueno. And KB, last week, let's be real, the fountain took many a victim. But through all of that, Luke McEwen's magic saw him spring to the championship lead, and now with 7 races left to go, we are in to the championship swing.
Honestly, was the fountain of chaos at Long Beach last week. It opened up the door for a lot of drivers to step into the top 10 and top 15. It otherwise would have been a harder journey for them had it not been for that game-breaking crash that we saw in Turn 2. But Luke McEwen had stood on all cylinders. He'd been on fire since the beginning of that Long Beach race. And we head into a Portland circuit that's kind of just like technical, but a little bit faster. It's a bit wider in a sense. No more the undulation of a street course circuit. Now it's all about the straight-up pavement these drivers will have to tackle tonight.
I got in trouble with Adam Blocker for calling the Portland International Raceway a quasi-street circuit, but formerly a street circuit, now a purpose-built race circuit. But last week, very much on the streets of the Action City, and up towards Turn 1, Florian Lebigra alongside of Dan Amor fighting for second. That was where the focus was. Amor tagged around on the front of the Frenchman, and from there, bedlam. Rush hour traffic in Southern California. And yeah, Eduardo Leo did get penalized there for the slightly unpolite rejoin and backing up into track. KB, as the rest of the field then spread themselves apart, we had a couple of battles on different compounds of tires, but ultimately it was about minimizing the impact of damage and lots of front wings missing for some of our competitors.
Yeah, and give credit to a lot of drivers having front wings off for a good portion of that first run. A lot of them on the soft Wayuli tires. See a bit of the contact there, one of the Drago Racing entries, and then of course the pit stops. Luke McEwen having to come in down first from the race lead. He would ultimately take it back. We saw some fantastic battles in the midst of everything. Drivers who sneaked into the top 10, being able to weave their way into solid points paying positions. Because of that crash, it opened up all of that through strategy, so you saw plenty of really good fights, especially here. Guys like Kwame Scott, first ever trip around the Long Beach street circuit in this form of competition. As a rookie driver, Alexander Russell, those are two names in eNASCAR competition, taking the streets and doing well in the top 10.
And while Luke McEwen might still have to perfect his burnout technique. The approach to winning the race has seen him build up 14 points of an advantage. That, of course, includes bonus points. 50 points for a race win, 4 extra for pole position, fastest, most laps led, and of course, leading laps. Diogo Pinto, our defending champion, in second. Alessandro Bico, a great effort from the best rookie in last week's race. But Phil Kraus, Kenneth Baino is the driver we have to focus on, because it was Diogo versus Phil through the inaugural INDYCAR Pro Series. Phil Kraus with a much better start in 26.
And we had that conversation of, can he minimize the negatives of the road courses from last season? And so far, he's responded well. The answer has been yes. But again, in this 8-race season schedule, a lot more road courses than ovals. It's not the healthy balance that we saw last season in 2024. You've got 5 of them, plus the fan vote win, which we're going to be announced very shortly. People have been voting on which track they want to see, Mid-Ohio or Barber, so we'll get a look at what that is. But right in the heart of this schedule, you're going to see a lot of it from Portland tonight. We're going to go to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway next week, so having a kind of Indy 500-esque style race, if you will, and that opened a lot of things up for drivers like Robert Malechka, and things really do take a turn when you got Mugello and Phoenix on the schedule, 2 new entrants alongside Portland that we're seeing today.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see how Nashville will go as well, given that will be the final oval race of the season and set up that run to the championship, of course, ending at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. But you, the fans, have had your say. The fan vote has officially closed, and so for the penultimate round of the 2026 INDYCAR Thrustmaster iRacing Pro Series, we are going to the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. It was a choice between the Barber Motorsports Park and this wonderful flowing road course. Of course, technical in their own ways. Thank you for contributing. And KB, we saw plenty of action when we visited this track in 2024.
Yeah, this was honestly one of my favorite parts about last season's action, was that the fans, everyone watching the series, got to vote on what track they would like to see, and it seems like they liked Mid-Ohio a ton from last season, that they want to see it back on the schedule in comparison to Barber. And what a racetrack this is. So physical, so abrasive, and look at that, all that elevation from high ends to low ends, and everything in between. The keyhole corners, so very famous as a hairpin. I mean, it brought it all when we were there last season with Eduardo Leo taking the trophy back then in race number 6. So glad to see that the fans have spoken. We're going to be back in Mid-Ohio later on in the season, when it's going to matter most in the points championship.
Sets up 2 very exciting road courses to close out the season, and we are officially at our first purpose-built road course of the season. Of course, this was a former street circuit, racing here since 1961, but for the first time in the INDYCAR Thrustmaster iRacing Pro Series, KB, we visit what is effectively a perfectly flat track.
You know, this venue was part of the Indy NXT iRacing qualifying series we had for a bulk of the drivers trying to either re-qualify or get in for the very first time. So they have a bit more experience here, but all flat, lots of flowing corners, specifically in that first sector. Got to be very on point with these somewhat off amber corners where you got to be off in turn 5 and turn 6. Long straightaway speed from off turn 12 to turn 9. And in the City of Roses, this track has really risen from the ground in a town that was demolished many, many years ago, and probably one of the best IndyCar circuits that has found its way back onto the IndyCar schedule as of late.
City of Roses, but I can guarantee you one thing: there will be no love lost between our competitors here today, especially after the testy nature of the paddock, after the chaos of round number 1. Join us for all the action as we take a look at our starting grid. Round 2 sees Alex Spetz for Drago Racing fastest of them all, lap times just shy of 1 minute. Luke McEwen just 100th of a second off of pole position. He'll line up on the outside of the front row. Important for him, while Jaden Munoz represents the World Sim Racing Esports team for the very first time. Michael Romanidis outside of row 2 with Drago Racing flying strong in qualifying. The Williams F1 Gaming Club Sotomuto inside of Cooper Webster, who won round 2 of last year's championship. Elliot Bayron and our defending champion Diogo Pinto split row 4, while the Brazilian Gustavo Ariel is alongside of Dan Amor, who's got some work to do after the mess of round 1. Ricardo Rico, Peter Berryman, the Drago Racing drivers, split row 6, trying to carve their way up through some of those competitors, and barely a 10th to find Vasilios Belitsiotis for Blue Mercury Esports and Sam Coiter in the other of the red line entries. Florian Labigra, Josh Thompson line up behind them on row 8. Thompson expressed his frustration at the madness of round 1, while Bico third, and at the streets of Long Beach, some work to do with Matej Kunzer as well for the Williams F1 Team Gaming. Michele Costantini, Philip Kraus line up on row 10, to IndyCar veterans with some work to do, while Pablo Espes, Nicolas Mateo, Davitov, Balint Pala round out the front 12 rows. And then just a handful more drivers, the likes of Esteban Rodriguez, Tamas Shimon, Rob Malechka, Adam Blocker, the Powerslide Motorsports Team Hype teammates, with Alex Van der Sant and Kwame Scott directly behind them. A full complement of 33 for round 2. Alex Russell, Jacob Oster, the final times on the board, while after the madness of round 1, Eduardo Leo not only sits bottom of the point standings, he sits at the bottom of the qualifying sheets as we roll behind the pace car. KB, 2 compounds of tires for our drivers to use as ever, the alternate softer compound and the harder primary compound across 45 laps of racing.
Yeah, no more Waiulis here since we're not on the streets course circuit, but we go 45 laps. The laps are really quick here around Portland International Raceway. Some of the best clocking in a little under a minute. 57.5 seconds is the range, so 45 laps we go here tonight. Again, like all the races in this series on the road courses, no yellows. So whatever chaos happens on the track is going to be left out there. Kind of whatever happens in Portland stays in Portland kind of situation. Leader controls all the starts, and again, the drivers have to use 1 tire compound for the pit stop. They have to make the switch from either the primary or alternate tires that they're electing to choose to begin this race with. That was a big talking point last week at Long Beach with how abrasive that surface was, where the undercut and the overcut was, Arjuna, and whether you wanted to come in earlier or later. This one is going to be a bit different, knowing that this road course isn't as tough on the Firestone Firehawks. However, still going to be a talking point around midway.
Quick look at the track conditions, and after what were some warm track temperatures on the streets of Long Beach, a little bit cooler relative for these drivers. That will be important as we discuss the usage of those 2 compounds. Remember, at Long Beach, we didn't even really get halfway through the race, and so that was definitely something that drivers were minimizing the time on the softer but faster compound of tire. A KB draft here is going to be important. Push to pass strategy will be important too.
Yeah, drafting down this long straightaway, particularly here. This is off of turn 7, and you go into 8 and 9. They're considered corners, but they're very much straightaways in their own right. Long time you got to be down there, and there are all the tires. Mostly everyone going primaries. A bit surprised. We saw much more of an even split at Long Beach last week. Many of those on the alternates. Luke McEwen, race winner from last week, trying to defend his crown, and sort of in a stampede on the alternates.
And interesting that it's Team Redline that have focused a couple of their drivers on that softer compound of tire. And so as we get going once more on the West Coast for the Portland International Raceway, it's Alex Betts that leads us up to turn 1 and the side of many incidents in the NTT INDYCAR series, but we should about get through safely at the front of the field. Jaden Munoz slips in front of Michael Romanides for 3rd. Oh, the mid-packs through testily through turn 1. I saw Belixiotis alongside of Thompson. 1 car in the grass as they filter up towards turn 4 for the first time of asking. And now into this middle sector, some chopping and changing further behind as Cooper Webster, Elliot Veyron go wheel to wheel through the switchback section, but everyone else, KB, has gone in single file.
Jacob Oster, Kwame Scott, and it looks like Alex Van der Sant picked up damage all the way at the back. Kwame Scott very slow through the first sector here, Portland. Again, all of it trying to slow down for the Shelton chicane, a very quick right-left snap. There are a lot of bumps in there as well. You have to back up in 2 different parts of that chicane, so the drivers being very careful. For the most part, everyone got through. Just those last 3 drivers ended up with the brunt of the impact, but a really solid start for Alexander Spetz, and already a trip to pit road, it appears, for one of the drivers in the midst of the group. That is Sam Quaitzer. No, it's Cooper Webster. He's going to be down to the inside and onto pit lane for the first time. So another shunt for Webster, who unfortunately was not part of the green flag last week at Long Beach, now going to be pretty much out of time early, with drivers like Russell and several others still surviving through 1 and 2, and others on pit road.
Yeah, so Cooper Webster, Alex Van der Sant, Jacob Oster, and Kwame Scott are the drivers on my timing screen that I'm seeing at the tail end. Oh, move. Here comes Luke McEwen on those alternate tires. Alex Betts, you can see the push to pass light up on the left side of your screen as both drivers use the 60 horsepower extra and charge them off to turn 10. Now McEwen's on the outside here. How brave does Alex Spetz want to be? They bang wheels, contact through turn 10. McEwen shortcut through the grass, almost runs into Spetz as he rejoins. And now watches Jaden Munoz, the Texan, tries to pick up the pieces. McEwen's on the push pass trying to defend. He will have a slowdown here, KB, but action at the front.
Well, that's such a difficult point of the track to make a pass. It's the left-hander, turn 10. That's such a fast point of the racetrack right after the long straight. And then you have to hop on the brakes for 11 and 12. McEwen had the gall to send it in there. Unfortunately, it didn't work, but right there had to deal with a bit of the slowdown penalties for going through the grass. Did a great job of holding on to the push to pass, using some of that extra horsepower to carry his weight in front of Jaden Munoz. But that could have been a disastrous mistake for the points leader entering this second race of the series, and even more big-time moves. Diogo Pinto looking inside of Veyron. Down the straightaway, they'll be side by side for 6th place.
And that's really starting to check up that second group, trying to chase down your race leaders. Look at them squabbling in the background up towards this far chicane. McEwen's put the incident behind him. Oh no, Diogo Pinto slides into the tire wall, and our defending champion is heading straight back to pit lane.
And again, same point of the racetrack, it's turn 10. You got to really be careful about where you are, specifically on the outside. Veyron had the momentum, and on the brakes, I mean, very loose from the word go. They touch twice, Diogo Pinto goes sideways, there's another batch of contact, and even a bit of Gustavo Ario almost picked up wing damage from Veyron's car, and Veyron has wing damage as well inside the top 10. We're going to look at the replay. This is Kwame Scott, very back of the field. Him and Jacob Oso are going to make contact. It's a dive on the brakes in turn 1, and Arjuna just narrows up right there, nowhere to go.
And while we watch the replay, the rear wing dangling, keep an eye on the top of the screen as well, because Luke McEwen set up the run out of turn 7 to try and slingshot his way once more. Top bottom of the screen, you can see all the action when this happened last time around, and in the live pictures, Alexander Spetz once more contact with Luke McEwen. McEwen with damage to the front wing, and watch Michael Romanidis as he pops to the inside of Jaden Munoz. A drag race up to turn 1 as last week's winner, furious as is Alexander Spetz. Madness as 4 more cars are heading down to pit lane as well. Oh my goodness, KB. Phil Kraus, Diogo Pinto, Luke McEwen, heavy hitters inside of the first 5 laps, tangled up at Portland.
And that was all in the same portion of the racetrack. 10, 11, and 12. You're hard on the brakes. Drivers hit the grass. Drivers make mistakes. They stack up, and it creates pandemonium at the front of the field. Not only that, Michele Costantini, it appears, picked up damage. Everyone so far has picked up some kind of dent on their wings, on their front, on their back. Everywhere drivers are picking up damage. And for Alexander Spetz, the rookie who was leading early, such a good start to this affair after a top 10 last week. And everyone's blowing the door wide open for Munoz to take the lead right now.
I'm going to hold off on commenting on those incidents until we take another look at them, because, well, I was focused on the replay and the live pictures last time around. This is Alexander Spetz. Hard to tell from that angle, KB, but it almost seems as though he expects McEwen to give him room and tries to slide into that ideal entry line into the corner. And unfortunately, second time was to be even worse of a consequence for the both of them.
You know, Arjuna, it almost makes me remind myself of the entry to the bus stop at Watkins Glen. You kind of have that inter-car decision of, should I go for the move, or am I expecting the driver on my outside who doesn't have the preferred line to back out? Because the last thing you want to do is go side by side. It's such a narrow and quick part of the track like that. But you have that internal debate, and you can't communicate with the driver you're fighting with because you're fighting for a position with them. So it's sort of that very silent but kind of communicative sense of, am I going to back out? Who's going to lift here? Who's going to give way for the other? And it looked like, I mean, they just wanted to keep themselves right alongside each other. Spetz was keeping alongside McEwen. And unfortunately, that wheel-to-wheel contact is just going to send you into a passenger in the matter of a split second. And obviously dramatic for all of them.
And as we see a big send from one of the Williams F1 gaming machines, new team name for them. Might take KB and myself a race or two to remind that. But you've got to remember, Spetz didn't have to defend, in my opinion. He was on the harder compound of tire. And so one more look at it, and this is from an aerial angle that will show us a little bit more clearly. I mean, McEwen is riding the white line effectively. There's nowhere else for him to go, quite frankly. And so both drivers will have their arguments, their excuses, depending on which side of the debate you are on. But regardless, big consequence for the both of them. And now as Jaden Munoz breaks away with Michael Romanides, so to Muto, let's check in with the race for 12th. And a couple of drivers who didn't get through the chaos of lap 1 at Long Beach. Well, Josh Thompson has also lost part of his front wing here, with Tamas Shimon, Pablo Espes, and David Toth all hunting him down. And at a track like this, KB, the lack of front downforce, it's really going to compromise you through some of the medium and faster corners on the track.
Yeah, you know, Long Beach last week, it had its ups and downs, and we did see drivers really struggle. I mean, Michael Romanides told us after finishing in the top 10 last week, who is one of those drivers who picked up early wing damage, he said the car was undrivable in a sense. It was so hard to turn and find any sort of front-end downforce, and that's exacerbated when you have a lot of these flowing corners that are much faster here in Portland. I mean, we talk about turn 10 and 11 and 12. All of that setting up for a front straightaway you can make passes at as long as you do well. And there's contact. Simone hits the back end of Josh Thompson, going to get sent around into the grass, and he saves it, but I believe everyone around the top 15 just about escaped any front wing damage, and that means Simone, the Hungarian, is going to have to hold on from the Spaniard and Pablo Espes and a heap of race cars in the top 15 to turn 10.
And remember, we are barely 10 laps into this race right now. This has been, I mean, Long Beach was crazy on lap 1 and then settled into a rhythm. KB and myself still struggling to find the rhythm of this particular race. Back to the line. Bright yellow of Pablo Espes with the Sheza Esports machine of David Toth. Great to see the three-pronged effort from Sheza Esports, a Hungarian university esport team. And in the end of 2025, it was cool to see David Toth alongside of Norby Kish, multiple-time FIA Europe champion, giving some conferences and speaking to some of the Sheza Esports university crew. Let's take another look, by the way, well, on board down to turn 10, because I think you'll get a good sense of what it's like racing wheel to wheel here and how close they are really getting. I mean, Diogo Pinto would have thought he was okay, but the margins are so fine.
And taking another look at it, it gave me a new perspective about entering turn 10. It's just a scope, but from that onboard look, just how narrow the entry of that corner is. And because it's so fast, the last thing you want to do as the driver on the inside is play so defensively that you're down on the inside and then you don't make the arc for the apex. So you're just going to be sending yourself into the grass wherever turn 11 is supposed to be. So then you really have to stay close to that wall on the right side of your car, but then you realize the car is there and you have to really spread it thin between using amount of the space that you have on your right side to make the apex of the next corner, while also not making contact with the car on the right side, who's also trying to fight you hard for the position. So it really becomes a difficult point. Again, this is all decisions in split seconds. Drivers don't really want to lift. This is for crucial track position early for the strategy that opens up. And unfortunately, really no one wins in that equation.
Back up at the front of the field, Florian Bigro, remember, he is on the alternate Firestone tire. You can see that with the red sidewall around the tire itself. Probably now getting towards the crossover point, but Lebigra still with the grip and the confidence to send it up the inside, and the Frenchman past Michael Romanides quite easily now for second spot, and now only a second back from Jaden Munoz, the Texan who's made the switch from the Williams F1 Gaming Club team to join the World Sim Racing Esports crew for 2026. Relatively late shift, and so we didn't see him representing the team last week, but KB, that's one of the things that makes sim racing so interesting, in my opinion. The fact that, you know, you look at an INDYCAR, Formula One, NASCAR, silly season for the most part is at the end of the year. Whereas in sim racing, teams are always in flux and drivers always moving around. And so as much as Jaden Munoz is working with World Sim Racing, he is still coordinating with his Williams Sim Racing teammates behind the scenes.
And it's crucial, especially in the landscape of changing in esports, to really have your relationships and keep them. Don't burn the bridges with the teams that you formerly were against. Here are the replays here. Josh Thompson and several other drivers just backing up at the Shelton chicane. Again, that's some of the most dangerous points of this Portland International Raceway. Everyone makes their jokes about how crazy turn 1 and 2 is, but I mean, that's just a demonstration right there. You have to dive into the right-hander and then really slow up. It's a sharp exit of that corner. So a lot of drivers on lap 1 and even further beyond that just stacking up there, and these cars obviously have no give. The wings go away and all that downforce goes away with it.
Gustavo Ariel, who did get tangled up in some of the contact last week, but still finished inside the top 7, running 7th once again right now with Matteo Kenzo, Vasilios Belitsiotis, then the Drago Racing pair of Nicholas Matteo with a couple of car lengths back to Ricardo Rico. Shimon, Espez, and Toth have now latched onto this train as they flick through that chicane, and can see them opening up the entry to that final corner, using that extra tarmac on the left side to run out wide. And now as Gustavo tries to focus on the defense, he goes all the way to the wall, and he's put himself in a position where he is very tight to that inside. Slips through cleanly, losing just a couple of tenths last lap to his teammate up the road. Some drivers, by the way, who have played these opening 13 laps very well, KB. Florian Lebigra, he's plus 13. Peter Behrman, he's plus 7. And then the likes of Kenzer, Matteo, double-digit gains, once more staying out of trouble. Ooh, in the INDYCAR Thrustmaster iRacing Pro Series, it's what helps you get those points.
And for Lebigra, I mean, what a comeback from last week. Started third in that huge crash in turn 2, and then just ended up 19th, down 16 spots from where he started on the grid for lap number 1. And it's almost the opposite tonight from Portland. Started 15th, saw the chaos in turn 1, but got around all the drivers that were fighting for position and ended up crashed. And now all of a sudden in the podium. I mean, Lebigra was one of those heavy hitters on the road courses last season. One of those drivers that was 5th in the championship. Also competed in the IR1 series when it began in 2021. Someone who's really experienced on the road course side of things, and great comeback for the Frenchman as he holds on to second. And how about Vasilios Belitsiotis, the German, trying to look on some drivers in Quenzer and Ariel. These are all guys wasting all of their push to pass. So far, Belitsiotis has the most of these three from 7th through 9th, so maybe something he can pounce with should Quenzer and Ariel make any mistake.
You were talking about Florian Lebigra, and I was just looking through some of my stats from the 2024 season, and it reminded me, Florian, over the course of the 10 races, lost 5 positions comparing qualifying to finished positions, and I think that tells you a story where you qualify well, and then sometimes don't get the luck, or involved in incidents, or whatever it is. On the left side of the screen, once more, you can see those plus and minuses. Lebigra putting some of the frustrations of 24 and inability to move forward behind him. Now, Gustavo Ariel increasingly feeling the pressure here from Matteo Kenzer, who is going to go straight over the curbing at turn 2. He loses part of the front wing as well. Oh, and now he is going to be feeling the pain, KB, for the next 5 laps or so before he comes to pit lane, and he's straight off into the grass.
That's such a hard place to make any moves. Again, no runoff here, much like Long Beach where the walls are around you. The grass is around you here in Portland, so it's not as damaging overall, but you are going to lose a ton of time for making any kind of mistake, and it's a really narrow entry in turn 1. He tried the attempted crossover there on Ariel, was playing offensively, hoping that Ariel would switch and have some sort of trouble off of turn 1, but off the bobble there, Quenzer with all of that damage pushing him down to 16th, and you can tell just how disastrous and detrimental the front wing damage is. It almost seems a bit worse than it was at Long Beach. Another offshore excursion there in turns 11 and 12. And much like we saw from all those guys who picked up damage early, it's a trip straight to pit lane. At Long Beach in the first run, you can maybe manage 5 to 10 laps, and even though you're losing time, you can still muster what you can. Here at Portland, the negatives and the consequences are so large, you have to pit almost instantaneously, because the longer you stay out there, the worse it's going to be for you.
And a bit of front wing to potentially add to my own collection of NTT INDYCAR front wing body parts, but ultimately it's just the way the car landed. It was kind of on the front right of the car itself, and that's what ripped that part of the wing off. Race lead holding steady at about 1.2 seconds as Lebigra's alternate compounded tire slowly losing the steam that it had, and guess what? He's down to pit lane as we close. I think that was lap 16, and so Jaden Munoz now with a 2.5 second buffer behind him. Clean air in front and behind, and if it's a 17 lap stint to open up the race, working backwards, Lebigra on pit lane, expect the drivers who started on the primary compound of tire, KB, to be in pit lane around lap 28.
Yeah, they're going to extend this for as long as they can. I mean, they want to squeeze the life out of those alternate tires as much as possible, and that's what we revealed at Long Beach, the different strategies from Luke McEwen, who was up at the front, and then, of course, the fact of Philip Kraus just making sure he can rally through the top 10 because of those tire changes. So with all that, I mean, it's worked out so far, but we're waiting to see when those primary guys come out and where that blend is for Lebigra when he comes out.
As I was mentioning slightly earlier, Jaden Munoz now representing World Sim Racing Esports, who their very first iRacing special event a couple of years ago, they went and won the iRacing Daytona 24 in the LMP2 class. My sign to wish you all the best of luck for this weekend's iRacing Daytona 24. But Jaden, such a talented driver, and we've seen him win championships in the likes of IMSA Esports Global Championships with downforce and requiring trust in the car. KB, trust in the car, though, is something that's very difficult, I think, sometimes for road course specialists to get comfortable with on ovals. And Jaden Munoz in the Indy Next qualifying series in the end of 2025 really showed us some impressive speed in, yes, a slightly different car with less power, but it's important to see that evolution of the driver as he adapts to the challenge of the Thrustmaster INDYCAR iRacing Pro Series.
Well, the one thing that's common between the journey upwards in real life racing and the journey upwards in sim racing is that you carry a lot of fundamentals with you. So even if you have a smaller car, you have a car with less horsepower and different handling, you can carry certain fundamentals with you that can go into a car like the IR18, which has quickly become many's favorite on the sim. With all the recent updates and changes, it's become a great car to drive on the sim. So to see that, the adjustment, the fundamentals for Munoz working really well right now. And I mean, give him credit. He was presented the opportunity and making the most of it.
Today's coverage is brought to you by Thrustmaster, the T598 steering wheel. Feel racing sensations like never before with T598 and its direct axial drive motor, the new generation of direct drive. This motor allows for perfect, clear wheel rim motion with no cogging for high fidelity force feedback. Scan the QR code to learn more. Drive into a new era of sim racing. And a big thank you to Thrustmaster for their support of the second Thrustmaster INDYCAR iRacing Pro Series. What an electric opening race and a half we have had so far. Yes, a slightly shortened season, but it's all building up to the start of 2026's NTT INDYCAR Series campaign, of course, as Alex Palou looks to defend his championship after a dominant 2025. Back to the edge of the top 10, KB. Tamas Shimon looking forward to try and make his way past Ricardo Rico, who is starting to lose track of his teammate Nicolas Mateo.
And for Shimon, I mean, second straight week that he's had to qualify this car, and it ended up outside of the top 20. 21st at Long Beach to begin that race, and then 26th here at Portland. But much like the luck that happened to befall plenty of the drivers in the top 10 last week, I mean, escaped all the chaos, and now he's here with a chance for a top 10 plus some. And you think of all the push to pass that he's used, he has 126 seconds left, which is going to be very interesting, knowing that guys like Pablo Espes and even a bit of David Toth, they have more push to pass to expend here midway through the strategy play. But Shimon is in a very good spot alongside Rico. I mean, two drivers that really last week couldn't find their footing. You know, for Rico, it was a tough finish, 31st, one of the last cars on the grid after qualifying 15th. And honestly, with the way this series has gone, you'd think qualifying would matter a ton more. But because of all this chaos, it has really created a situation where kind of doesn't matter where you qualify a little bit. You got to bank on good qualifying, but as long as you're presented with opportunities and you can stay up in front, keep all four tires on the ground, that's what matters.
Always love seeing drivers in VR. We have a couple of them in this iRacing Pro Series. But KB, I'll go back to what you were just saying with the qualifying not being so important. Luke McEwen last year lost 65 positions from where he qualified to where he finished races. I think that kind of shows you that he struggled sometimes to finish races. But on the other side of things, Phil Kraus struggled a bit more in qualifying, gained 56 positions relative to qualifying and finishing positions. And so there is an art form, I think, in many ways to staying out of trouble. And in a short series like this, we'll talk about it time and time again. That art form is elevated to one of the key defining differences between our championship contenders. And so let's see what's going to happen there with Kraus, Pinto, McEwen all involved in incidents here. To the outside comes the Hungarian, but Tamas Shimon thinks better of it with the red wheel rims. Green wheel rims on the car behind him for Pablo Espes. As these drivers 20 seconds off the lead. I'm looking at lap times right now. Florian Lebigra has been punching in some lap times, KB, that could see him undercut Jaden Munoz. We could be in for something interesting to the end of this race.
And Labigra so far all the way back in 19th. But remember, because of the hefty amount of primary tire users to begin this race, everyone's coming down. So the tradition is going to be simple in the change on track position, and how fun that's going to be when the blend inevitably comes into play. But I mean, Labigra is going to have to thrive on what's his offensive prowess right now, because any amount of time he can gain on these guys staying out as long as they physically can, I mean, it's going to be a challenge for Labigra to try and play a bit of catch-up when those guys get fresh rubber, and then their play is really just to run it to the end. Sotamuto looks on forward of Romanidis. I mean, Romanidis with a top 10 effort told us how crazy it was to be from damaged to fixed, and then all of a sudden back in the top 10, and mentioned how Portland was going to be a unique challenge in its own right. And Drago Racing, they've had 3 cars in the top 10 last week, and sort of led by Romanidis this week, given all the issues that has befallen Spets and a couple of others. And a great battle we'll see here for second, coming to pit lane in a couple laps.
Yes, but they are being caught by Peter Berryman. I was just looking at my timing screen. He has not used a single second of his push-to-pass yet, and is only 6.5 seconds off the lead. And there are some drivers that like to roll their push-to-pass usage out at the start of the race, try and build a gap and then hold on to it. Remember, we don't have safety cars here in the INDYCAR iRacing Thrustmaster Pro Series, and so there is less of a compression effect during this race. There are some drivers, on the other hand, that save the push-to-pass to the end, so they are able to attack a little bit more, as we see driver down on towards pit lane. It's one of the Sheza Esports machine. Tamas Shimon sits and waits for the fuel and the Firestone tires to go on. But I think Berryman is in a very, very good position right now. A driver who did get tangled up in the chaos of last week, finished 23rd in the season opener, qualified outside the top 10, but the race pace is what's keeping him alive.
And this is going to matter a ton when you save all of that push to pass. You know, we mentioned the offensive prowess for a driver like Labigra now was to push on his set of tires a little bit. Oh, car on the grass, offshore excursion, saves it though, in the middle of it all. Wonderful save in the middle of that group that was right off of turn 11. Ricardo Rico's going to hit pit lane, a little bit behind this, I believe, but for the sake of Peter Berryman, I mean, he's really banking on the fact that his track position is really good, which it is, and then the tires that are going to come up are the alternate tires, which you can really expend in the first 5 to 7 laps. So if he can do that, plus the push to pass, I mean, we're talking about a pretty dangerous driver here, especially knowing how competitive Berryman was last season, making the switch from Apex to Drago Racing, a now formed team, very large coalition to try and challenge the teams like Redline and such. And Berryman, I mean, fantastic spot. Almost similar to Kraus if you think of it last week, the way he can be aggressive.
Let's not forget Berryman, former IRO 1 champion as well. He knows what it takes to win at this level. Let's take another look at the incident for Vasilius Belitsiotis in that Blue Mercure esports team. A brand new outfit, French esports crew. And deja vu scenes of Spets and McEwen, but the benefit here was there was enough room left between them that they didn't pinch each other into the wall. But again, for those just joining us, our front row, Alex Spets and Luke McEwen crashed out in, well, a very similar sort of incident. Here's some more takers down towards the pit lane and trundling down. To be fair, it's Gustavo Ariel and David Toth. A bit earlier maybe than I would have expected, KB, but I think they want to get onto the alternate tire as soon as possible.
Hey, I want to be quick. I mean, this is a bit under 20 laps to go, so I'm a bit curious to see where they're going to end up, because with all of that time and all of these laps they have to spend on these alternate tires, I mean, we saw most of the guys at the front go 17 on the alternates before slapping on the white wall hard tires. So I don't know if Ariel can hold on. He's going to have to really save in the middle of the top 15, which has been so full of firepower, lots of crazy moves and crazy crashes. Can we call this race the tale of turn 10?
Yes.
I mean, it's dominated so far more than the drivers have, I think.
And, you know, it's a stark difference between reality and sim racing. You saw earlier, at the end of last year, I should say, Connor Daly got involved in an incident at turn 10 in the real world. And a lot of the discussion in the social media paddock environment was which driver should have backed out first. Whereas here in sim racing, backing out first, what is that? Is kind of the way it often goes. Luke McEwen in front of Cooper Webster. Remember, Webster tangled up in some of those start incidents, had to pit at the end of lap 1, and he's let McEwen hold on to track position, and only, well, what's it, 30 seconds away from Jaden Munoz right now. I'm looking at the pit delta, which is around 33 seconds, KB, and I'm thinking it is going to be a neck-and-neck race off pit lane for Jaden Munoz and for Luke McEwen.
It is. It's going to be really close to see where they end up out together. I mean, McEwen, though, is on a tire-saving masterclass effort at this moment because he's 22 laps into his stint. Remember, he had to come down so early to repair that race car, and that did include a change of Firestone Firehawks. So with that and being aggressive on the alternate tire, now that that was squashed away with the contact, how conservative does he have to be here, knowing there's still 18 laps to go? There's so much of this race left. So even if the blend does become a conversation, it almost kind of becomes a turning point on McEwen of, can you hold on to your stuff? Because everyone's going to come down, they're going to have fresh tires. McEwen is going to be stringing on for dear life.
I need to correct myself. For this week, I'm over in Europe, so sharing a 2 a.m. wake-up call like many of the drivers are. I meant Florian Lebigra's about 33 seconds back from Jaden Munoz, who is in pit lane now as a Sotomuto in that Williams F1 Gaming Club machine. It leaves Michael Romanidis, Peter Berryman, the Drago Racing teammates, to extend 1 lap further, and that's going to mean 1 lap less on the alternate compound. They can push it that much harder. And so as Munoz hits his box, it was about 10.5 seconds stationary for Florian Lebigra. That's a full top off in fuel, and the Firestone tires going on. For Jaden Munoz, it's just 8 seconds, and so it won't be close. It is going to be Munoz that re-established himself in the net race lead, KB, and with a full 5-second gap to Florian Lebigra.
That is called fantastic execution from Munoz, not only amplifying the advantage he had out in front and in clean air, but just to be in and out of the pit lane as quickly as possible. Don't create drama down the pit lane. Do your business, handle it well, and then just run out on track. But I'm really curious to see where Peter Berryman comes out in all this. He has used a bit more of his push to pass to compensate for the tires, but still in second, holding on, and now he's on pit road.
Here come the teammates. For more information about the series, head to iRacing.com/INDYCAR-esports. Learn about the schedule, learn about the drivers, or even, if you're interested in joining the series, dive into the rulebook and see what the drivers had to do to qualify to be part of this iRacing Pro Series. So Michael Romanidis, will it be a slightly shorter pit stop for him? 7.5 seconds. There comes Munoz. The Drago Racing pair will blend back into the active traffic, and Berryman's going to in fact have some traffic in front of him. Romanidis now has got the bit between his teeth. A 2-second gap, 1 lap better off on the tire window. It's a straight fight. Munoz versus Romanidis, 16 to go.
And for push to pass, Romanidis has more in the tank, 135 compared to the 118 on Jaden Munoz's car. So is that a point of conversation where the Drago Racing car can start to step up the heat on Munoz and make him flinch? Maybe a possible mistake out of the 24 should they get close enough to battle. But what a pit stop by Munoz. I mean, putting himself 9.2 seconds and closing on Eduardo Leo, who's just hanging out for dear life, hoping that something can save him. He's going to be on pit road now, and we know that delta at least 33 to 34 seconds. That is more than enough time to have Munoz blend right in front and be the net race leader. But so far, the gap is starting to increase just a little bit. Romanidis fell back to 3 seconds. He's going to try to close back in turn 1, but that last time by, not able to step up to Munoz's pace just yet.
And for Eduardo Leo, remember, started 33rd and dead last in the field. He is on for a top 10 finish. The feisty Italian fighting back after a horror show of round number 1. On board with Luke McEwen, remember, does owe us a pit stop. Last pitted on lap 5 in this race. And it's going to promote Sotomuto then into the podium position, although Peter Berryman not far behind. That is a fight that will extend to the dropping of the checkered flag. For Florian Lebigra, the alternate call has actually, I think, worked out for him, KB. Remember, he started all the way down in 15th position, and so right now, effectively, sitting 5th once McEwen makes his way down pit lane.
I mean, knowing the tail of the tape, Arjuna, for Lebigra last week, I think he'd be more than happy to get a top 5 out of this, a top 10 out of this, to have some good points reflected from the performance, because a good qualifying effort. I mean, oh, look at the move down to the inside. Nicolas Mateo making the move down low on Eduardo Leo. That's for 9th place and a heap of cars behind. But back on that point, just to wrap it up, for Lebigra, I mean, given the way race fell backwards at Long Beach from 3rd to 19th, I mean, going into the 6th and maybe with a chance to gain some more spots at the end. More than enough to get himself back on track in this championship for sure.
Eduardo, by the way, on cold tires relative to those already out on track, and so maybe that was part of why he has slipped back into Q. Most drivers are on the alternate compound, though, to end this race. Let's not forget. Only a handful of drivers started this race on the softer compound and are now switching on to the harder compound to run them to the checkered flag. Eduardo Leo plus 23 on the day so far, and that day is not done. 3/10 off the back of Nicolas Matteo. Meanwhile, Michael Romanidis on this lap alone has lost himself about 1 second to Jaden Munoz, and so the Texan, that lead being grown, but Peter Berryman's putting the pressure onto Sota Muto. The fight for third could be on soon. Berryman's teammate, though. Here comes the attack from Eduardo Leo. Nicolas Matteo can do nothing but watch as the red line car set sail into turn 1.
You don't really want to put too much defense out there in turn 1. I mean, we saw the contact, the wings that have fallen off from race cars because of a faulty move, just playing so much of that offense or defense. You kind of either hope that the driver makes a mistake on the brakes for turn 2, second part of that chicane, and then you start to make a good run up here. You set it up for turn 9 and a way to maybe peek under entering turn 10. But, I mean, really good fights right now in the midst of this group. That's where we saw a lot of the action last week at Long Beach, and I think that's really where we're going to see the fireworks come out all season long with the way everything has shaped out to become in this series, given all of its context. And there's Luke McEwen finally entering pit road, and it took a while. Luke McEwen was going to give it all that he got, given the situation he was faced with early on in the event. I mean, had top 10 position, was out there for a bit, and now just having to come down. I mean, he can't make it on fuel, and even then the tires are going to be squealing for any amount of grip.
No, and you know, it's damage limitation for Luke at this point. Doesn't look as though anyone is going to be consistent to open up the first 2 rounds of this championship. Maybe the most consistent. Michael Romanidis finished 8th in round 1. He's going to seemingly grab a podium here if things hold as they are. Fastest laps chopping and changing. This time it's Cooper Webster. But 2 very different mindsets right now for Peter Berryman. It's going on about 2 in the morning for him. Trying to stay awake in some ways, although veteran drivers kind of know exactly what to expect. On the other side, Sota Muto is the one usually accustomed to driving at 2 in the morning, but for the first time that I can remember, he's got a sim racing competition at a reasonable time of day. It's about 11 a.m. in Japan right now. And Sota's such an interesting story, Kenneth, because last year he actually raced in the Ferrari Challenge Series in Japan, did really well, won the championship, then got to go and be part of the season-ending Ferrari Challenge Showdown. And we often talk about straddling the lines between sim and reality. The thing you see with Sota is he's not just leaving sim racing to go real racing. He's doing both of them.
It's crazy when you can do both at the same time. For that sake, I mean, a lot of drivers just kind of leave the sim racing world behind and they just step into real world, which is a lot of the goals for these drivers, and it makes a ton of sense. But to do excellence on both sides of the game, whether it be from sim racing to being behind the wheel in real life, I mean, it's so special. There are so many stories, especially in the recent years, of drivers that have had the opportunity to race out there in real life, and not only have they seized the opportunity, they've jumped miles with it. They've been able to soar to the skies, win races, win titles. So for Sota Muto, in a season last time out in the INDYCARs, that wasn't exactly super of highlight. I think the beginning of this season, 13th at Long Beach, and then here in top 3 tonight, if he can hold on for Berryman. It's going to be a fantastic effort. And by the way, for those who are wondering how parity-filled these first 2 races have been so far, only 3 drivers in the top 10 right now finished in the top 10 last week. Everyone else have either crashed or have had some sort of huge issue to take them out of contention. So championship is still open.
And thank you to our production team who read my mind and instantly pop up the live points. And as it stands right now, it would still remarkably be Luke McEwen in the championship lead, albeit just 1 point clear of Michael Romanidis, just 8 points clear of Jaden Munoz, not far back to Nicolas Matteo, Gustavo Ariel, and then defending champion Diogo Pinto all the way down in 7th and 21 points off the lead. Importantly, in that top 10, no Phil Kraus. who is going to be going to next week's race at Indianapolis, KB, thinking, right, it's time for Powerslide, for Team Hype to shine and grab all the points.
Yeah, that was his damage in full effect tonight. I mean, being one of the first DNFs, and even despite some of the problems from Diogo Pinto, Luke McEwen, and several other heavy hitters at the top of this championship board, I mean, he was out early and he was out very quickly. So it was really tough for him to stay out on track, and he had too much damage on the race car. Again, that's really where this championship is, but you think of it, I mean, first two races, it's still not over for a lot of those guys in the top 10. They're realistically within a shot. So, I mean, have a good race next week, continue that momentum, and pick back up from any negative situation. You can easily be back in the top 5 with a chance to push yourself into a title-ending situation. As you saw, Berryman just hit the nasty bump outside turn 12, and it's going to lose him time on Muto in the battle for third to turn 1.
Some lap traffic behind. Might be Jacob Oster, who's another driver probably looking forward to next week's trip to Indianapolis. It's going to be interesting because it will be a one-lap qualifying at Indianapolis rather than a traditional 4-lap qualifying run, which we're broadcasting on the NTT INDYCAR channels. I don't think it's a controversial statement to say those are the 4 most difficult laps in all of motorsport. And so when you now make it slightly easier, field becomes a bit more equalized. And so from the PRI Hoosier 500 at the end of 2025, Powerslide locking out the front 9 positions, front 3 rows of that starting grid. Not expecting the same thing next week. It is going to be a much more closely contested battle at the racing capital of the world. Our first oval race, it's 66 laps as well, which for anyone who knows Indy, that's a magical number for fuel mileage. There's lots for us to look forward to as we head to one of my favorite tracks in the world. Such a historic location, such a special place, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So, cross the line once more, and we are ticking those laps away. Munoz, Romanidis, not much between them, but we jump on board with Pablo Espes, sitting in 11th, and with former teammate Vasilius Belitsiotis on the hunt behind.
And this is on the final seconds of the push to pass. Rico at 44, Espes jumping into turn 1 with 80. They haven't lit up the push to pass quite yet, but maybe a last gasp here for Espes to snag a top 10 and be right in the thick of things for the Williams F1 Sim Racing Club. And a great race for both of these drivers, Rico and Espes. Great pickups from last week at Long Beach. That seems to be the trailing story, always finding a way to come back in a way and switch to the opposite of what it was the week before. I mean, you see just how technical that first sector is, finding your way through those very slippery corners and then having to set up here for a corner that some just don't have it in them to go for a move, understandably so given the examples we've seen early in the race. And then you have to flow through turn 12. There's a bump right about here. Juan Pablo Montoya spun around, did a 360 here in 1999 for the IndyCar series there. So it's so treacherous, even the best can get torn up there. And Espes still cannot make a move in turn 1, but a great battle. I think that's going to go side by side to the line at the checkered.
This is a track which has had one of the closest finishes in all of kart history. And a 3-wide finish as well, if you go back to pre-2000. Eduardo Leo is now up 25 positions from where he started. He's got his teammate just in front of him, Gustavo Werrell. He does seem to be struggling a little bit more at this phase of the race. Remember, Gustavo pitted a little bit earlier. He's on the harder compound of tire as well. And will we see the teammates coordinate up to turn 1 this time around? Lots of support, as ever, for Gustavo in our iRacing YouTube chat. I did see someone in our IndyCar chat who's cheering on for Eduardo Leo, who's had a mighty fine drive up through the field. And I tell you what, Gustavo's not going to sit down on this one. Forces Eduardo to try and go the long way around. And the 17-year-old frustrated for the time being.
Just a little assurance there, making sure, hey, I know you're my teammate, I'm not going to let you by. This is still going to be a fair fight for position. But, I mean, give credit to Leo from the penalties after the chaos last week at Long Beach, which was also a fantastic qualifying effort. Top 10 for the driver who picked up his first win in this IndyCar series in the first race of last season's edition. You know, for him to be up in the top 10, given everything he has had to deal with, I mean, just a fantastic way to stay relentless in this fight regardless.
Up to third, where they've lost track of your leader because they are starting to squabble a little bit more. So to Muto, Peter Berryman, the second podium of the season, 4 laps away from being settled. And this is where Berryman saving all that push to pass, Kenneth, is going to help him out a little bit. It's not going to be an opportunity to pass in through 4, in towards 5, but up to that turn 10 chicane, up to turn 1. Having the push to pass in reserve, it's exactly what he was planning for on the run to the checkered flag.
And it's a setup for here, turn 7. It's a kind of a long but very slow right-hander. You hook your right side tires onto the curb and then you launch out for the straightaway. But Muto with a great exit to hold on.
Remember, if you're loving all this action, thinking, how can I jump into the world of iRacing? Log on to iRacing.com. New memberships are 40% off. Every day is race day. It's never been a better time to jump into sim racing and experience everything around iRacing nowadays, whether it's here in the Thrustmaster INDYCAR iRacing Pro Series or the many other pro championships that continue to run through 2026. This, the driver's eye view that you would get behind the wheel of this Dallara IR18, recently updated at the end of the year with a brand new hybrid package. And we haven't talked much about that because it doesn't impact the racing itself. What it does impact is weight, and that was the weight of pressure from Esteban Rodriguez, putting him into pressure and now locking up the left front tire. It's allowed Cooper Webster to swap back underneath him as they sweep through turn 4. And what a move from Webster, up to 15th, and Luke McEwen follows through as well.
And Rodriguez with a bit of that damage control. He knows the tire advantage for McEwen and Webster, and it's a difficult point to play defense on the outside. Look at that, nearly 3 wide, jumping under Pablo Espes. What a move by Cooper Webster, sails to 14th in an unprecedented challenge on the inside in turn 7.
And you saw that the other car got a bit wrong-footed. Luke McEwen chose differently to Webster, and unfortunately that's cost him some track position as they sweep back to the line. 2 laps left to go. Jaden Munoz is 2.5 seconds clear of Michael Romanidis. The fight's still on for the 3rd and final step of the podium. And another tumultuous race in the 2026 INDYCAR Thrustmaster iRacing Pro Series. McEwen almost tags Espes as they get onto the brakes there. That was very clumsy, and Adam Blocker, the Indy Next race engineer for Chip Ganassi Racing, not close enough to lunge alongside as they work through this opening sector. He will be able to do so as they continue to fight the lack of downforce evident. Oh, you can only imagine the pain, KB, that Pablo's been dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, that's a similar set of corners like the Indy Road Course. First 2 and 3, it's a right-hander into a right-hander, and you flow and you're on the brakes. That's so tough. Look at Berryman trying to play some more offense before this is all said and done. It's the white flag for Munoz, who's looking to sail to his first career Thrustmaster iRacing INDYCAR Pro Series win, but Berryman's going to give it all that he's got in this first sector for 3rd.
And where are the push-to-pass reserves? Does Berryman have one final charge out of turn 7 on the run-up to turn 10? It's this exit here, the right-hander. Can Muto put the power down nicely? Yes, he has, in that Williams F1 Gaming Club machine, but at the front of the field. What a roller coaster of a ride to open up 2026. Left the Williams F1 Team Gaming Club, joined up with World Sim Racing, and after 2 top 10s in 2024, it's Jaden Munoz on top in the INDYCAR Thrustmaster iRacing Pro Series, and this means everything. Behind, the fights continue, so to Muto, Peter Berryman. Muto just about holds on. But KB, we are 2 races in, 2 different race winners, and the championship, it's wide open.
Everyone's got a shot. You get a point, you get a point, you get a shot at the championship over race 2. What a drive by Jaden Munoz, and you can see it. The emotion is so fulfilling in that moment. He only got close to a top 10 and got it once last season. He was not able to find his groove in 2024. Nearly a year and a half later, it is really a turnaround moment for Jaden Munoz to dominate in the way that he did after the chaos, opened up the race lead. Munoz stepped up front and didn't flinch a single time. That's a rewarding victory for sure for Jaden Munoz here.
And I know it will be a popular victory as well. Jaden with a difficult start to the year in some ways. I know Williams would have preferred not to let him go. He would have preferred not to leave as well. But sometimes change can be good. And for Those that forgot, now you remember. Jaden Munoz on top in the second round of the Thrustmaster INDYCAR iRacing Pro Series after a quite dramatic opening 5 laps. Saw Alexander Spetz, Luke McEwen tangle up with one another, and the Texan sweeps through to grab the checkered flag. We'll grab a look at unofficial race results because I get the feeling points, penalties, a miss for our race control team in the aftermath of this one, and heading off to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Jaden will sink in this moment, and I can't wait to hear that emotion when he chats to KB. 2.3 seconds clear of Michael Romanidis. 2 top 10 finishes, and now just 1 point potentially off the championship lead. Sotomuto, third for the rebranded Williams F1 Gaming Club crew, while Peter Berryman, one of our hard chargers today, rises his way up to 4th +8 on the day. +10 for Florian Lebigro, while Sam Coit and Gustavo Ariel find themselves in front of the biggest mover of the day, Eduardo Leo, +25 from the back of the grid. Nicholas Mateo and Ricardo Rico make it 4 Drago racing cars inside the top 10 to match the 4 from Redline, while Vasilius Belletsiotis' trip out on the grass of turn 11, season finish in 11th, with Tamas Shimon, David Toth, Sheza Esports in front of Cooper Webster, Esteban Rodriguez, and then Luke McEwen. Adam Blocker slips in front of Pablo Espez, who struggles with the front wing damage to limp to the checkered flag with Rob Malechka and then Michele Costantini. 2 drivers hoping Indianapolis favors them a little bit more. Alex Russell, Alessandro Bico from 3rd to 22nd, a sign of just how tumultuous this championship is going to be, with Thompson, the last car scored on the lead lap, Alex van der Sant, Jacob Oster, and then Captain Consistent Diogo Pinto tangled up in some contact, as was Dan Amor for a 2nd consecutive week. Balance Parler, Kwame Scott finished the race, unlike Matteo Kenzer, Alex Spetz, Elliot Bayron, and Philip Kraus. Well, I'm looking forward to this one. It will be a delighted Jaden Munoz standing by with our own Kenneth Bueno.
Here with Jaden Munoz in victory lane for the first time in his INDYCAR Thrustmaster iRacing Pro Series career. Jaden, we saw it on your face crossing the line. That win meant a ton to you. What are the emotions right now after this first dub?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Honestly, so many emotions. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, I didn't even expect to be in this position. Like, I was praying for the series to come back, and because I really love this car, and yeah, I really wanted to come back and you know, do better than what I did in the previous year. Because obviously we were missing something. This year, obviously, we found something. So we can finally fight, and yeah, I'm just so elated right now, especially over what's been happening over the past few weeks. It just means so much, like so much.
World Sim Racing, they're going to be real happy to see this after the switch. I want to paint the picture. Lap 4, you're entering turn 10. You see the 2 leaders collide, and you almost get into one of them exiting turn 12. What's going through your head in that moment, and how do you adjust from being third and chasing to being the leader and having to set the tone for the rest of the event?
Yeah, I honestly didn't expect them to fight so hard. Especially with the alternates being quick. Like, I thought Alex would let him by, but you know, going too wide to that corner it almost never worked. So yeah, the first time they were so lucky. Very lucky not to get big damage or anything. But the second time, yeah, they was a lot of consequence for them. But yeah, I just knew I just had to keep it clean, control my tires, control my pace. Just keep up. I wanted to stay in Alex's draft, at the very least. But yeah, it helped me. So yeah, good.
So you grab the victory, and this championship just continues to be as wide open as it's ever been after race 2. After the dub, how much momentum does this give you, and in what way does it help you click in the right way, like you said you have this season, to go for a title at the end?
And I'd say a lot, because yeah, Long Beach was super devastating. I prepared a long time for that race, and it didn't even end in 3 corners, or it did end in 3 corners. So yeah, that was devastating, because I really wanted to go for the championship this year. But yeah, that was bad. race, but it looks like some big names had a bad race today, so maybe I'm somewhere back up there, hopefully, and yeah, this is a good momentum boost and confidence boost for sure.
It's a great start. Go enjoy it, Jaden. Congratulations on your first career dub here from Portland International Raceway, and ready to see you in the field take on Indianapolis next week.
Thank you, thank you.
That's Jaden Munoz, winner today from Portland International Raceway. And to describe Eduardo Leo's race, Eduardo, it's you can take the dog out of the fight, you can't take the fight out of the dog. You were penalized after Long Beach, but regardless, you stood up tall, and you're able to walk away with a top 8. How can you describe the way this race went for you tonight?
Yeah, I mean, thank you guys. This was quite an eventful race. I didn't expect it. Like, I was coming into this race thinking, okay, let's say probably a top 15 would be insane to come back. You know, I was planning to do just my very peaceful race, starting on the hards, maximum fuel, and just feel safe all the way. So I think that worked pretty well, considering a lot of people were fighting really hard and you know, not giving each other a lot of room. So yeah, I mean, just waiting ended up being the best decision, and yeah, picking up who was left outside the track.
So in that situation where you have to start at the back, you see the chaos unfold, drivers at the lead collide, there's a ton of things that are happening around you. In what way do you mentally stay locked in to be as aggressive as you can and make the most of that strategy? Like you said, a very different approach to what you would have had there not been any penalties.
Yeah, you know, you try not to think about it really. You just stay focused on your race. You know, you have a lot of things to manage with this year with the hybrid update. It's quite a lot to do during the lap. You got the boost, you got the push to pass. You need to manage all the in-car settings. So you know, you cannot get really distracted looking at other people. So it's kind of difficult to manage all of them. But yeah, luckily I've got also a great engineer on my side. So you know, I can leave some stuff to others and just focus on my race. So yeah, I think I was pretty calm and just managed everything pretty well.
Top 10 at Indy last time we were there in 2024. What's it going to take for you to be back in that position, plus some to go at it for the win next week?
Well, hopefully even better. Yeah, indeed. I mean, obviously ovals are not our best playground, but we will try to do our best and yeah, hopefully get another good result. I need to definitely step up to get back in the championship fight after an eventful Long Beach race, and yeah, I need to make up for my mistakes, and this was definitely a good way to start it off, and let's keep it going for Indy.
A stellar comeback tonight, Eduardo. Congratulations on the top 10. We'll see you at Indy next week.
Thank you guys. Have a great evening.
Eduardo Leo, I mean, give him credit for all that he had to fight through tonight. He did his job, and for Jaden Munoz, all that emotion pouring out. So happy after that first win.
It's not often you hear a driver admit that they've made mistakes so open up the season, but great to hear that from the 17-year-old Eduardo Leo. This is how the points have shaken up. It's not quite 1 between McEwen and Robinidis. It's just 3 points. But I mean, KB, a win is worth 50 points, and as we stand right now, the top 20 covered by just 41 points, and that is what we've been saying. This championship, it's still wide open, and we head next week to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. 66 laps of racing. It's a magical number with the fuel mileage. We could be in for a very interesting race that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the season.
This point here, from race 3 onwards, is going to be the big question of what form will you be in at midseason. Knowing how short of a campaign this is at only 8 compared to 10, you got to be on your A game in the midseason form, and that's where Indy comes in. The track that has rewarded so many has dealt heartbreak to many as well. It's one of the most iconic ovals on the sim, and in real life, we had a great race here last season. Plenty of competition, plenty of fantastic battles. Should see no shortage of that next week for the 66 laps we'll have.
It's such a magical place. The only shame is that unfortunately, KB, you'll be without me. I'm going to be at Daytona, and so as much as I'm happy about that, sad to miss the 3rd round of the INDYCAR Thrustmaster iRacing Pro Series as we fight for $50,000. The fight runs to the start of the 2026 NTT INDYCAR Series campaign. One thing is clear, we will not get a dominant champion like Alex Palou. It is going to go all the way down to the wire. Thanks for joining us on behalf of our team at iRacing. For Kenneth Bueno alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati. Our West Coast swing has seen madness, mayhem, and now we head to the racing capital of the world with a championship to be settled and a long way still left to go. We'll see you then.